Good morning and welcome once again. The Okefenokee Heritage Center, in trying to maintain what our middle name is, Heritage, is doing a lot of things, and we're venturing out some. And this morning we have the opportunity to come to Laurel S. Walker State Park. And as you can see behind me, they have a naval store museum. And the naturalist here has been so kind as to provide us with a little of his time, and we're going to go inside and meet him, and then he's going to do some explanations of all the equipment and things that he has. So come on along with me. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
This gentleman is Doug Todd. He is the naturalist here at the state park, and he has put together a very nice looking museum here, and he's going to be kind enough to donate some of his time to us this morning, and we're very appreciative of it, Doug, and we thank you so much. And we're going to listen to all of your knowledge here and educate us a little bit.
I'm going to try to take us through it from the beginning up to modern day.
All right, that sounds good.
When our ancestors came over here, they obviously came on wooden ships, and wooden ships have a problem of leaking, so they had to be waterproof somehow or another. So they would use the resin from the pine trees, other resinous trees, cook it down and make a pitch, and they would waterproof the boats inside and out. All the ropes and lines that they were used on, anything that was used on the ship had to be waterproofed, and so they would use this pitch that they would make from the resin of the pine trees. Initially, they would use a boxing axe like this and would chop a huge box down in the bottom of the tree. Then they would take a broad axe and would do what was called cornering, and they would cut these little corners off. That would end up sort of as a funnel for the tar or the resin to run from the tree down into the box. They would take their wood hack then and make the first streak. It was usually no more than about 4 inches wide. Just didn't need much at all. All they're doing is scratching the tree. And just like you get a scratch and your body starts issuing forth fluids to heal it, the tree's doing the same thing. It's trying to heal itself. So they would catch that resin in as it would run down out of the tree into the box. A week or so later, they would come and make another streak and another streak and keep moving up until they had this, what came to be called a face. If you look at it, you see the whiskers of the cat's face and its pointed ears. This up here shows a little bit better. You see the whiskers up here and the ears of the cat. So they call them cat faces. And this is how they would keep a count of how many trees were being taken care of in the plantation and the progress of the workers, where they accurately doing their work. They keep a tally on the number of faces that were done. You'll see some pictures in here of guys out working in the field, and they're sort of misrepresentative because obviously if you look across the road over yonder, you'll see it's not clear. There's underbrush everywhere.
Yeah.
The wildlife that lives there, snakes and everything else. So they would have to sort of clear their path, in particular around the tree where they went. So they scrape and hack all the weeds around the tree and scratch that first initial part of the bark off before they start working on the tree. Until the days when they started doing the tapping instead of the chipping of the trees, that tool was still used just to clear around the trees. In about 1903, a professor at the University of Georgia, Charles Hardy, came up with the idea of instead of essentially killing the trees, we're introducing disease and beetles and everything else into the trees with this box, weakening the base of the tree. A good still wind come along and would break the tree off at the box level. He said, why don't we just hang a cup on the tree? So there's a little set of gutters on there to help funnel the tar down the tree into the cup. And so that took off. Well, since he had the bright idea, others are always going to improve on it. So a little bit later, a fellow by the name of McCoy came up with the galvanized cup. It had a great deal of benefits over Hardy's clay cup because you drop this one, it breaks. Drop this one, it doesn't.
Okay, so the clay cup was first before the tin. I thought the tin was first.
Not the cup was first. These would also fill up with water during the wintertime, freeze and break. They were also very heavy, so they weren't very transportable. These are actually a good deal lighter than these cups are, and if you drop one on them, they don't break. Fill them with water, they don't freeze and break. And they're also malleable to an extent where you can shape them to the tree.
Yeah.
Still, the gutter was the best idea of funneling the resin down into the cups, but bypassed the idea of the Hurdy cup. Some brave or smart individual came up with the idea, well, if they do metal with this, we do metal with the Hurdy cup. So they came up with the metal Hurdy cup. Again, a good deal lighter than this one, transportable because they would stack up. So the ideas are bouncing back and forth. You see on the shelf was a whole range of cups that were used. The Pringle cup, again, was a clay cup, breakable, but it was molded to the shape of the tree. So it made a whole lot more efficient capture of the resin. The bird eye cup, same thing. You can shape it to the shape of the tree. Somebody else had some idea. As time went on, they came up with the nice plastic cup and aluminum cups. This one made out of aluminum. Again, getting lighter and lighter, more transportable, more durable. One of the amazing progress of time. They also found out that the bark hack that I showed you first here, over here, was very narrow, very sharp. They would sharpen these things where they were just, you'd almost shave with them, be so sharp. But it would make a deep, deep cut into the tree. They discovered, eventually, that it just wasn't necessary to do that, to use a wood hack like this to cut such a deep. They put a little wider lip on it and would remove just the bark. And they started using the bark hack. And you can see the difference in the size of their shapes there. Right. Again, all they wanted to do was wound the tree and make it start bleeding. And you didn't have to get very deep in the tree for it to start doing that. Well, as time progressed, obviously the face is climbing higher and higher up the tree. So they had to have a tool that they could reach up and work over the heads. So they would use a bark puller on an extension pole here. And one is on the handle, so you reach up over the heads. We have one here, a very old one here. Until they did that though, until they come up with all this great advancement here, as you can see in this picture here, there's a box cut in the bottom of that tree, and no cups to catch the resin as it runs down the tree. So the resin runs down the tree, the volatile oils of the turpentine evaporate out, and it leaves this, what they call scrape on the tree. It was still good for processing rosin and cooking the turpentine out of it, but you didn't get near the grade that you needed to get the money that you needed for the rosin, or then the volume of turpentine that you needed out of it. But they still would harvest it. So they would use what was called a puller, push-pull puller. And they would pull the scrape down into this bucket right here. They lay this bucket up against the tree, pull the scrape down into it, put it into the barrels, haul it to the mill. And that's the steel. We got some pictures of the steel over here for you. After they would put the first scrape on the tree, they had to do something to make that wound stay open so that it would keep on bleeding and the resin would keep on running. They discovered that sulfuric acid would change the character of the pores that they have exposed with that scrape. So after they had put the gutters on, hung the cup up underneath it, as they were leaving, you'd see them shoot some sulfuric acid into that wound. Now the reason they would do it as they were leaving, because it would turn into a gas. It would be all over the area around there. We'd get into them on their clothes, and being organic, it would do some great deal of physical damage to them. So you'd see them do that last. As time passed, they discovered they could make it into a paste form, and this is some of the paste that is dried on top of the bottle, and it didn't vaporize quite so bad. They could shoot the paste up in the hole, and I had to be so quick and anxious to leave, and it wouldn't splatter on them and stuff like that. So the paste became a whole lot safer.
Okay. Well, I was watching a video on that, and I saw the guy chip, and then I saw him squirt the stuff, and I thought, I wonder what he's putting on there. And that was the acid.
Sulfuric acid.
Yeah.
And it would make the wound stay open a little bit longer and bleed a little bit more efficient.
Yeah.
Again, as they went up the face climbing higher and higher up the tree. Obviously they can't chip and then shoot the acid without the acid raining back down onto them. So they came up with this cute little rig here. The acid bottle would fit up in this hole. They do their scrape, squeeze the bottle, it would shoot up the pipe into the wound, and they could get away.
Really? Go up that?
Papers getting away.
Go up that long, okay.
So this was an overhead working tool, but they still had to give the acid application. So it would fit in there.
Well, that's interesting. They did everything they could do to it to get it to work.
Yes, we did. And I think that covered every tool.
Yeah.
Except the dip buckets. I've got two different dip buckets here, the same buckets, two of them, and then the scrape bucket. These were also called niners because it would take 9 of these to fill this barrel that you'll see outside the window here.
Really?
So they got called niners. Yeah. At specific gravity, basically same as water, the resin is going to weigh just almost what water will. 8 pounds a gallon.
Yeah. That thing will hold.
So if you've got 5 gallons here in this bucket, you're 40 pounds around with you. You don't want to go very far with it. So the position, the collection barrels, at strategic points through the forest. And just about how long it would take this bucket to get full, they could walk over there and dump that into that barrel, and then they could keep on. Another crew then would come along with a wagon. You can see this one here is the wagon with the barrels up on top. There's another one here with them rolling the barrels up. I wouldn't want either one of these jobs, to tell you the truth.
No, I wouldn't. I don't want any of them.
At over 500 pounds, rolling that barrel up those rails right there. If something was to spook the mules and they just shifted a little bit.
That was 500 pounds, really?
Yes, each barrel weighed over 500 pounds. 450. That's a 35 gallon barrel or a 50 gallon barrel. But right at 500 pounds, if it fell on you, you're dead. So, and these guys here, to chip this high, they were standing on the back of the wagon. See, he's here with the chipper in his hand to do that, scrape up that high. I'm not going to stand on the back of a wagon with a mule attached to it. With a tool in my hand on top of a barrel that's probably going to fall on me and kill me.
You know, we talk about today, it's hard times sometime, ain't it? Gas gets high and things like that. But we ain't out there doing what truly was labor. And this is a labor intensive industry. And
a lot of people were involved in it.
oh, I mean, there was a lot of good points, just like, you know, the chit you showed us, a lot of good points about it and a lot of bad points about it. But a lot of people didn't starve to death because they had the industry was there.
And we're willing to do it.
Yeah, they were willing to do it. They were willing to do it.
Get them to do it today.
Yeah.
When they started using the boxes, the cups, and still scraping the tree up higher and higher, they realized that they could move these gutters and these cups up the face of the tree and continue to retrieve a higher grade of resin, thus a higher grade of rosin. And they would use a tool like this. I've got one down here, and these things are heavy. And they would use this to pull the double-headed nails out, and then this would grip the gutter and pull it out from underneath the accumulated resin on the tree and the growth where the tree's trying to grow back over and heal. So this was a tin puller, as they call it. These were the tin gutters.
What were the little yokes for up there, Doug?
Well, I don't know when they initially discovered it, but the smaller the tree, the less results or resin you're going to receive, and the more damage you're going to do to the tree. Probably end up killing the tree at too young an age. 9 inches at breast height proved to be the best size tree. Give you the best production and do less harm to the tree. So these were calipers that were used to measure. There were some brave souls who said 9 inches, I don't have that many trees, but I got a whole lot of 8-inch trees. I'm going to take a chance. So they come up with an 8-inch caliper.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, some of them said, I got plenty of trees, I'm going to take care of my trees. So the top one is a 10-inch caliper. And there's quite a few years age difference between 8, 9, and 10-inch tree. It's growing taller and getting bigger. So that's just an example of the calipers that we use to measure the diameter of trees.
Okay.
And the gun rosin business, the naval storage business, has always been very labor intensive. You'd have to have somebody go through the forest first with calipers, measuring the trees. Now he would either mark the trees or go ahead and do the initial scrape. And then another crew then would come along behind, do the initial scrape, hang the cups, and start the process of the trees. And then somebody else would come along and dip the tar, put it in the barrels. Somebody else had to haul the barrels down to the steel. Somebody else down at the steel had to do the processing. So it was very, very labor intensive. A lot of folks were involved in it. Fortunately, they got paid quite well. I have an example of their payment here. These were little turpentine tokens that were used at the commissary. Most of the plantation owners would have a commissary where the laborers would buy all their food and their clothing and whatever else they might have need. In some cases, they would have to buy their own tools.
Really?
Yes, that's bad. 1 token a day. If the commissary owner, the plantation owner, was a particularly greedy individual, he could say, I'll sell you beans out of the commissary. It's going to cost you 2 tokens. So the rest would have to work 2 days.
2 days to get the
just
beans.
for 1 can of beans to try to feed his family of 6 or 8. Down the road was another plantation, another commissary. That guy maybe was not so greedy. He could have said, I'll sell you a can for 1 token. The problem was, this token is good at this commissary, but no other commissary.
Oh, really?
So you couldn't take this man's token and go to that man's commissary and buy food. You pay 2 tokens, or you just would go without.
So you could owe your soul to the company store.
Literally, the song was very true.
Yeah. That's right.
The token that they would use, the payment, basically $1 a day.
Is the longleaf, excuse me, was the longleaf pine, that was the original, I guess, the tree, because it was so populated in the southeastern United States.
Right.
Is slash pine, is it used as well to harvest turpentine?
There is a difference in the grade of resin and the amount of resin that you'll get from a slash pine or a long pine. And to be honest with you, I don't remember which one is which. I think the slash pine actually gives the better grade of resin.
Okay.
A long pine gives more, but the slash gives a better. It's some kind of a mix like that, though. Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
So primarily the pine tree, if we just say the pine tree is going to give us some turpentine, we in the ballpark.
Yes, sir. Now that leads me up to another tool here that I really don't like, but it's extremely hard to get resin out of an oak tree.
Yeah, I bet it is.
So since pine tree is what you needed to get the resin out of it, hardwoods will take over a forest in a little while. So they would destroy the hardwoods with this tool right here.
Really?
So hollow tube, you would fill it full of strong herbicide, go up to the oak tree with this end, strike it 2 or 3 times around. Every time they would strike it, it would open up the bark, shove the piston up, the herbicide would flow into that wound on the oak tree, and it would kill the oak.
Okay.
So this is an oak killer.
Yeah.
That's why I don't like it. I like oak trees.
I can understand that. This, let me ask you one other question. I think this is current date.
Yes, that was the next step I was going to right there. Some, again, bright individual says if they can tap a sugar maple, we ought to be able to tap a pine tree. And so they tried the process. And they would take an 1.25 inch bit, drill just below the bark, no deeper than they would have chipped with the bark hack, drive the pipe into the tree, tie the plastic bag onto it. Give it time to bleed into the bag, and then go out and harvest the bags, empty them into the barrel, haul them down to the steel and process them. A whole lot less damage to the trees. Turpentiners and the lumber people we're sort of enemies with each other because all this made very, very poor lumber for building. When you run a tree, a cut or scrape on a tree up as high as these right here, so now I'm up as high as 20 feet, you run an awful lot of harvestable timber for making lumber. This process sort of beats that system. You put on a proper size tree, put up to 6 of these around the base of the tree.
Really?
You tap the resin out of it, and then you got all the rest of the tree that can be harvested for lumber, whatever you need. Okay.
Yeah.
Also, this is a vinyl bag, and we have enough plastics in the world right now contaminating our environment. Somebody came up with an idea that says if we can use a rosin for so many other things, why can't we make bags out of it? And so now they make the bags out of rosin.
Really?
And when they're harvested, it all goes into the barrel, into the steel, and it all gets processed right on through. So that's smart.
Yeah, I'm
Pretty
smart.
smart. I've left out several steps, and I hate to do that. I'm just trying to show you the tools today. These, I skipped right over these, but these were the spoons that they would use to dip the tar out of the box. And then later when we went to the cups and to the different hurdy cups and stuff, they would use what we call knives to dip the tar out of it. And those didn't fit in the boxes, the cups so well.
Well, is the industry completely gone now? Just about it?
It just about disappeared in the United States. Other foreign countries, kind of captured the industry. Cheaper labor, I'm sure, was the biggest part of it. But fortunately, we do have a family locally, just a few miles up the road here from us, that are doing a good job of restoring the industry back to the country. Okay. They're not the only ones, but they are, I would say, leaders in it. And I have some of their products over here. Once they cook down the resin and drive the turpentine off, it's captured into actually those steels look like moonshine steels. The turpentine oils run down through a cooling coil and get caught into a vat. And this is it here. Well, this is from that local industry.
Okay.
A nice clear turpentine liquid. Again, it isn't oil. See, some of it's already evaporated out of the bottle, even though it's sealed up. They would use the rosin then for, there's well over 2,000 uses of rosin. Violin players, rosin their bows with the rosin. That's what's in this bag here, the processed rosin. Baseball players, you'll see the pitcher reach down, pick up his bag, catch a little bit, roll it around on his hand, drop it. Now he's got a grip on that ball. He can do whatever he wants to with it. It dries the hands, it makes the hands tacky. I understand football players, they put a little bit on the hand so the receiver doesn't have the ball shoot through his hand when the quarterback passes. It's used in cosmetics, medications. Again, over 2,000 uses. I couldn't know I can name all of them.
Well, I know growing up in the South, turpentine was, it seemed to be a staple in every household. And my mother believed that you could cure anything in the world with turpentine.
Well, my grandmother lived to be 98 years old and worked outside all the time. Outside, you're going to get bumps, scratches, scrapes, whatever. As soon as it happened, you'd see her hobble back inside the house and she'd get the turpentine bottle and would just pour it right on there. I know about 2 years ago I was out hiking the trails and got into some greenbrier and scratched the backside of my leg pretty good. And it bled a little bit, hurt. I got me some turpentine on there, rubbed on there. A couple of days later, I was getting in the shower. You know, every time water gets on a scrape, it burns. All of a sudden it dawned on me, my leg wasn't burning anymore. And I looked, and I had to look to try to find the wound.
Right.
The turpentine had stopped the pain, and it just had the abilities that healed me right up. It was great. They tell you on here, and I believe it says on the bottle, not for internal consumption, do not take internally. When I was growing up, if you got a cough, you got a spoonful. If your nose running, you got a spoonful. If you had a tummy ache, you got a spoonful. I'm a I'm old, okay?
I remember that.
I'm still alive. So I'm not telling you to drink it, but we did.
I understand. I understand. Yeah, it was a medicinal product when I was coming up. I can well remember my mother putting a few drops of turpentine in a spoonful of sugar.
Yes, sir.
And not only that, it was rub your chest and rub your throat. So it was a medicinal product as well.
Right. I can show you the assembly of some of the tools if you want to see that. Apart. They would blacksmith forge the heads. Take a piece of good solid wood, carve it out, drill holes in it, and then form the locking ring. You gotta go on first. And all put together in the little hole that's in there. Collar down on it, and then we drive it down on there. And now they've got their wood hack.
There you go.
Of course, it had a very heavy weight on the end of it. And this one's not being shaped to fit this small weight, but the weight would go on the end of this, and it would end up looking like this one.
That could be a job all day long.
Well, it would be.
Yeah.
And obviously, these were
Yeah.
real men
Yeah.
out in those woods
Yeah.
handling this stuff. That would get very tiresome after a while of carrying that thing around. But it beat the fool out of just using
Oh yeah.
the handle and you doing all the strength. Okay. With having that weight on there, when you had to hack the tree,
Yeah.
this did the work for you. You just having to carry it around all day got to be old and tiresome. I think that's pretty much
All right.
all the tools we got
Doug,
in here.
That was extremely interesting. We appreciate it so very, very much. And to me, this is a great part of the heritage of the South, because as I recall growing up, there was a lot of turpentine stills around. I probably within a 50-mile radius of here, I can think of about 6 at that time. And it was a big industry, as you said, very labor intensive. There was just all kinds of stuff going on associated with the naval store industry.
Well, it was also used as a, I guess what you would call a cottage industry, I think is what it would call.
Yeah.
In the case of my grandparents, my grandfather would farm corn and tobacco. And then my grandmother, when she wasn't taking care of the house full of kids and everything else, would actually go out and chip the pine trees out on their property. And then she would haul the resin then down to the still. I don't know if she went to the one in Baxley or the one in Hoboken, but she would carry them down to the still then and get her resin processed.
Part of the supplemental income trying to survive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was you did a lot of things that you would prefer not to do, but what you needed to do, you had to do in order to survive.
No choice.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thank you again so very, very much. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your knowledge. And we deeply appreciate you keeping it alive for us. And I hope that people will come out to Long Walker Lake.
I was going to say, I hope that you invite folks out and we can give you a more complete tour and explanation of it, answer your questions face to face. We'd love to have that opportunity.
Yeah, and just take a look at it, because it's if you grew up here, if you grew up in the South, the southeastern United States, it's a part of your heritage and a part of life that your parents or your grandparents or somebody in your family went through. So we're very grateful for your time and particularly your preservation of all the equipment. So thank you once again. And if you are out and about and have nothing to do, we would love to see you at the Okefenokee Heritage Center.
Yes.
And we appreciate our partner here, the Long Walker State Park, and being with us in our efforts to try to keep our heritage in the South alive. And we're going to, in the future, hope to find somebody that's going to make a little syrup. And we're going to try to look at that a little bit also, because that was a thing that happened in the South too, where this was part of the income of the family. Making syrup was used as part of the income as well. It was a barter tool, and it was also used in the homes. So stay with us. We got something else going on. Thank you so much.